Could we talk about, there's VPNs, there's people, there's people who have a lot of money in China, there's people who have power, they can figure out ways around censors. Emily, tell me about Twitter, and there was the case of the blind dissident at Chen Guangqing, and how in some ways, though, as much as China doesn't want the Western companies with their servers outside China to play a role, there are some notable instances where they have.
Sure. So that's a great question. So, Twitter, this whole kind of like Twitter versus Weibo thing, I mean, the conventional wisdom is that Twitter is irrelevant in China, right? Because China has its own version of Twitter with, hundreds of millions of people. Twitter, we don't know how many people, but it could be, I don't know, tens of thousands. I mean, you can't compare because to get onto Twitter, you have to jump over the Great Firewall. Now, it's worth noting here that it's not that hard to jump over the Great Firewall of China if you want to do it. You can get a virtual private network, VPN. That VPN will probably be closed at some point. You get another VPN, you ask Auntie, I don't know. There's always a way. When there's a will, there's a way. But for most people in China, they don't really want to go to Twitter because everyone they know is on Weibo, and it's a kind of a pain, and you're not going to reach a large audience. But I think it's important to note that Twitter does still have an impact. How does Twitter have an impact? I think in two main ways. In one way, it's kind of a one-stop shopping for the Chinese dissident scene, right? So anybody in China, and not even dissident, but any in China who thinks a certain way, maybe is a little bit more critical, they're likely to have a Twitter account, right? So that Twitter provides a platform for them to communicate amongst themselves, which is important. I mean, it's kind of they're like Chinese opinion leaders can communicate amongst themselves without Chinese censorship because they're outside of the firewall. The other way that Twitter is important, and I tell this story in my book, is that if you're in China and you want to communicate directly to the Western media, there's probably no better way to do that in real time than Twitter, right? So this happened with Chen Guangcheng, and I'm not going to get into this whole story here, but I'm sure some of you remember this blind lawyer when he took refuge in the US Embassy. Initially, the story was really portrayed in one way, that he kind of had reached an agreement and everything was fine. And I remember I was looking at Twitter, just normal Twitter, but I follow a lot of people in China, and I started seeing these reports come through, and they were saying everything the media reported is wrong, everything is wrong. And these were basically Chen Guangcheng's friends, people he knew. And of course, every Western journalist pretty much is on Twitter. So they started asking these people, like, wait, what are you talking about? And within, a matter of hours, the entire Western media narrative kind of was reversed. And that was what started it. And this couldn't have happened on Weibo, because Weibo, that would have been censored in 2 seconds. You never would have had those messages. So, if Auntie or one of Auntie's friends wants to say something about China and get that story to the Wall Street Journal, to the New York Times, to anyone in the US, Twitter's going to be a pretty fast way to do that.
Auntie, before we open for questions, any thoughts on that? If you're a princeling, if you're a person of influence in China, does this whole debate matter much, or can you just leap over the firewall?
I think so. Even everyone accept the new normal things as a daily life, like the air, like the Beijing air, right? Even Beijing air is polluted. I know that I cannot escape that, but still I want to buy a purifier, even it's very expensive, because at least in my home, I breathe very fresh air. So I think the Twitter is the purifier of the knowledge, of the information. Even I know in the whole China, I should get used to WeChat. I love WeChat. We love Weibo. But eventually, in your heart, you should have something very real, very direct, very not self-censor yourself.
Right.
I think that would be the Twitter. So Twitter is like one-stop stand to the truth.
Right, and to your community, right? I mean,
and also the friend that share the same interests and same idea with me. So it's very easy. I see someone from the Twitter friend, we call Twitter friend, I just by default think he's very good guy, without doubt, because it's so hard for China to stick into the Twitter. If you have all the alternative, the WeChat thing, if you can give up the millions of followers in Weibo and WeChat, you just want to stay in Twitter. That means the belief in your heart of the freedom is so strong, I really will love you.